Thank you very much. I had two experiences this week that tie directly into what I want to talk about this morning. The first one was a member of one of the programs that I work in and I were talking, and she advised me that at her last doctor's checkup, her blood glucose levels went from pre-diabetic to normal. And the second experience that I had this week was I had an opportunity. I taught the Always Active program, which, by the way, is funded by the Department of Aging and Adult Services. I taught the Always Active program for 7 or 8 years. We do exercise classes in 9 sites throughout the city, and we do 5 a week at the San Francisco Senior Center. But I haven't done this for many years because I quit that job 3 or 4 years ago. And I had an opportunity to sub for the instructor. In fact, it was yesterday. And a lot of the people, the majority of the people that were with me 10 years ago were still there. Wow. And more importantly than that is that the function that their abilities in that class were just as good, if not better, than they were 10 years ago. So what we had in those two experiences were, we had a person essentially reversing a disease process, which she attributed in part to her exercise program. And then in the other example, what we had was a situation where we have people who are maintaining their fitness and function for long periods of time, after turning 60. So that leads directly to the premise that I'm going to talk about today, is if you want to increase your chances of aging well, both physically and mentally, and with good quality of life, do regular physical activity. So the goals I have today, you can give me the hook if I speak too long, is to identify the relationship between physical activity, health, and function as we age, identify the contribution that physical activity makes to mental well-being. I know we have an expert here, but I just wanted to put in a pitch for physical activity. If we have time, some basic concepts of exercise. And then what I'm going to do is reveal for everyone what is the best exercise. I'm sure there's something involved. So let me go ahead. I want to start with a few definitions. Is it hard to see the...
Jim, could you speak directly into the microphone?
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
So physical activity is simply body movement that requires energy. Exercise is a little bit more rigorous. It's more structured. It's repetitive in its movement to improve or maintain one or more components of physical fitness. Physical fitness is operationally defined as a state of well-being with low risk of premature health problems and energy to participate in a variety of physical activities. And sedentary, which you probably can't see from there, which is the new smoking, right? Is sedentary living is defined. I can't. Jerry, could you go back?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Physical is defined as a way of living or a lifestyle that requires minimal physical activity and that encourages inactivity through limited choices, disincentives, and/or structural or financial barriers. So, as we go through this, we may want to identify some of these different terms that we use. So physical activity and fitness are associated with prevention of lifestyle diseases, treatment of these diseases, and delays or it mitigates or delays the biological impacts of aging. Those are the 3 main physical effects of ongoing physical activity. So we can move on. So I want to take the American ACSM, which our esteemed director is a certified trainer from, right? That's the American College of Sports Medicine. And all the information or the data that I'm going to give you this morning comes directly from that organization. Probably the most prestigious organization that investigates and puts together information about fitness for adults and for children too. They publish standards for fitness, and all of the information I'm going to be giving from here on out that's related to data or information about exercise and physical health comes from them. So, physical activity is associated with reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, obesity, colon cancer, and breast cancer. So, first off, exercise is associated with prevention of those diseases. Next. So then if you get them, okay, if you happen to have the disease, physical activity is almost always associated with treatment for those diseases. So the treatment is recommended as therapy for coronary heart disease, hypertension, peripheral vascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, elevated cholesterol, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, claudication, how do you know what that is? Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So the point is, so if you exercise regularly, if you do regular physical activity, you have a better chance of not getting these diseases. But if you happen to have them, then probably your doctor's going to say get out and start walking or doing some exercise to help you deal with those processes. And finally, physical activity slows the normal functional aging process. It mitigates age-related biological changes and their associated effects on health and well-being, and preserves functional capacity, which is what I was talking about earlier with the group that I observed yesterday. So, loss of muscle mass is one of the things that's the normal process of aging. You lose between 30 and 40% of your muscle mass normally after, say, the age of 40. After your peak, you start losing that muscle. That's a normal process of aging. And exercise, particularly strength training here, is associated with reducing that loss. Next. All right, joint range of motion decreases. So it's normal that the range of motion in our joints decreases for a variety of reasons. And again, exercise in this area, like yoga, stretching, and that kind of thing, allows you to maintain that range of motion for a longer period of time. Bone loss is another one that is, again, these things are normal. They're normal in the aging process. Exercise, strength training, again, is extremely important for helping us mitigate the loss of bone. And then the consequence of all that, and I think that's the important thing, is that what we're trying to do is maintain, for as long as we can, functional capacity. Because it's actually functional capacity that leads us to away from independent living, the inability to do our activities of daily living, and falling and getting injured and that kind of thing. So what we can do is slow that down. We can't prevent it, but we can't prevent it ultimately, but you can slow it down. I just want to briefly touch on that because in doing the research, one of the things that impressed me is this American College of Sports Medicine actually added new standards related to psychological well-being related to exercise. I'm just going to breeze over that because we're going to have people that are far more expert than I am, but talking about that. But these areas, regular physical activity, they help us improve our mood, help us deal with anxiety and depression. Let me see, I found a quote there from the Buddha who said, "To keep the body in good health is a duty, otherwise we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear." So that was some advice there, which seems to be borne out by the research. So we have, then we have intellectual development. We have improved cognitive performance. There are studies that have shown improved cognitive performance related to exercise, and also there's been some improved, some studies that have shown improvements in cognitive disability, or helping deal with cognitive disability. Okay, Julie? I've been found a little bit of research on spiritual. Again, somebody's going to talk about spiritual, but if we can relate spiritual to quality of life, which they describe here as a physical construct, a conscious judgment of the satisfaction an individual has with respect to their own life. Physical activity is associated with significant increases in self-efficacy and improvements in overall well-being and quality of life measures, for example, body pain, by vitality, social functioning, morale, and sleep quality. So there's a lot of things that exercise does beyond just your physical. When I was studying this stuff at San Francisco State, I came across this chart, which meant a lot to me. It's hard to see the chart, but there's first off on the vertical matrix there is the function, the functional capacity from low to high. Okay, and on the horizontal matrix is maturity to senescence, which is extreme old age, where kind of the genes take over. Okay, it's hard to see the chart from there, but anyway, you have a line. The lower line says from maturity, from your peak. The blue line, if you can read it. If you age, they call it lifestyle aging, where you're sedentary, you have disease processes, or involvement with substance abuse, for example. You have basically a linear line to decrease of your function as you age. It's pretty linear, pretty straight. If, on the other hand, the red line represents biological aging, which is you're fit, you're healthy, you're eating a good diet. And so what you see is that you see a maintenance of high function for a much longer period of time on that graph before the biological clock ends. So there was a book that I enjoy reading, Younger Next Year, and the author of that book, who I can't remember his name now, talks about fighting against the tide. There is a tide that's coming. There is a point at which that we won't be able to exercise, that we'll get old, we'll reach the point where we're not able to do that. But the idea is to keep swimming against that tide. And I think that's kind of the message here. You want to have your land coming?
You can do questions or talk for 5 more minutes.
Okay. Why don't I skip the basics? Why don't you go, because I don't want to go one more. Okay. If you're thinking about starting an exercise program, and I'll end there, avoid the most important thing, if I've given any message out today, is to avoid a sedentary lifestyle. I see many people that are doing that now, but try to avoid that as possible. Regular physical activity is the first thing to achieve. If you're not working out now, if you're not active now, don't think about doing CrossFit. Get up and start doing regular physical activity. If you get motivated later, then start getting into an exercise program. A lot of the achievements, or a lot of the benefits that I've been talking about, are achieved with just regular physical activity. You get more benefits from organized exercise, but physical activity is the most important thing. Again, if you're haven't been exercising, you see a doctor. If you before you start, particularly if you have cardiovascular disease or some kind of orthopedic condition that you need to be careful of. If you do decide to exercise, use progressive overload. Overload is basically challenging the muscles of your body to do more work than you're used to. But you don't want to go out and start doing, if you haven't exercised, don't do 100-pound weights right away, because all you end up doing is injury. So you want to do that gradually. If there's pain, there's no gain. That particularly in joints, it's good if you do a good exercise bout that you feel a little bit like those muscles have been challenged. Muscles might feel a little bit sore, but if you start messing with your pain in your joints, you want to be very careful about that. The duration and frequency of exercise is far more important than intensity. Duration is how long you do the exercise. Frequency is how often you do it. Intensity is how hard you work. So working moderately gets you almost all the benefits you need from exercise. You get a few more benefits from working harder, okay, doing more intensity, but you also increase your risk of injury, which would stop you from exercising. So stay in that moderate range at least until you're ready to go further consciously. Now the last thing is, what's the best exercise? Any guesses? All right, let's see. Here's a hint. An hour of basketball feels like 15 minutes. An hour of the treadmill feels like a weekend at traffic school. Is there a hint there? Okay, let's give the answer. It's the one that you will do. So if you like to walk, walk. If you like to swim, swim. Try to do exercises that you enjoy and that you'll be motivated to do. Thank you very much.